Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome. I'm Todd Mansfield, one of the owners of Core, and kind of help put together these CoreLife lessons. We're happy to have Dr. Lissy, local orthopedic surgeon, here to talk to us about performance, and he'll go ahead and tell us a story. So welcome, thanks for being here. Again, we're live streamed. If you have questions, hold your question, unless you want to take them along the way, and off we go.
Okay. Yep.
Great.
Well, first I just want to say thank you for having me here. Thank you to Todd. It's a lot of fun coming here. This is a fun talk to put together, and I'm really just a big fan of sort of CoreLife. The food that they serve here, it's delicious. I come here quite a bit and enjoy it, but also just the whole thing he's got put together. It's really quite impressive, and I'm honored to be a part of it in any way. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm a local orthopedic surgeon in the area. I'm a sports specialist, but I've been around sports for basically my whole life, and I've played a lot, played in high school, I played in college, I played recreationally after that on teams. I've coached teams. I've worked as an athletic trainer up to Division I collegiate level, and then on as a physical therapist and also an orthopedic surgeon. So I've just been around sports a lot, and you know, I'm trying to pay attention. And so these are just some of the things that are not so mainstream orthopedic surgery medicine, but that I've noticed around sports, and I thought it would be a fun talk to put together. So top 10 things, and in no particular order. But the 10th thing I want to talk about is playing multiple sports. So particularly if you have young athletes, it's very trendy right now to be on travel teams and to play year-long in one sport or another. And I got to tell you, there is a lot of evidence out there going over the benefits of diversifying the number of sports that you play. There's a lot of crossover. So we find that soccer players are better pitchers because there's quickness involved. And if you pitch year-long, you're not going to do as well as if you play another sport and get that core strength up, and that if you do one sport the whole year, whether it's gymnastics or tennis or baseball, you're going to have more injuries, and that's been shown over and over and over again. Anybody who's interested and is on Facebook, you can go to the UHS Sports Medicine Facebook page. All of these articles are posted. If you just go back over the years, they've all been posted. You can read the whole article, but they all say the same thing, right? Which is over and over again, you're better off playing a range of different sports. And if you do specialize in one sport, you get a lot of burnout and higher rates of injury. Again, 70% more likely to suffer an injury, and this was published in the Orthopedic Journal of Sports Medicine. A recent big story in Time talked about the industry behind the sports, the reason that we're all on this pathway. You know, we used to play a lot of different sports, and now our kids just sort of select into one sport, and there's reasons for that. It's not just you parents being crazy, it's not just the kid wanting to do it. There's a whole industry built on it. There's coaches who get salaries on it, there's sports complexes, but it's not helping us very much. If you look at the Division I coaches and they ask what they're looking for, they're not looking for a kid who's on that #1 travel team. They're looking for a kid who's played multiple sports. That's 88% of the athletes that they take. They're looking for and then we know that you get burnout, you get anxiety, you get depression in the kids when they play for one sport over and over again. And we know that you have more injuries, overuse injuries, when you play one sport. So this is all built into these big mega complexes that are throughout the communities that rival any Division I complex, that they need to fill those, right? They need to fill those. And so there need to be travel teams to come in. And so there's a lot of pressure on the coaches to come there. There's a lot of pressure on the parents to sign up for this or that. And then the kids feel that pressure because if you want to hang out with your friends who are on your team, you got to be on this travel team and not that one. And it all builds on itself. And I don't have an answer, an easy solution to you, but it's important to understand what the problem is. And it's important to understand that it's not good for anybody. So the next thing I want to talk about, number 9, is attitude. And this is also not something that's commonly addressed or talked about in terms of your sports participation. But if you've ever coached a team or been a part of a team, you know that it's maybe more important than other things, right? Your attitude when you come on, having a kid with a great attitude might be better than having a kid who has better defensive skills or is able to move around a little bit better. Just being a part of the team, and I think that for some of us who tend to stick around sports, that's what's attractive to us, is being a part of something that's bigger than you. And these are all just, you know, different quotes, whether you think you can or you can't, right? That's the answer. That's what it's going to do. Bad attitudes will ruin your team, and they're contagious as years worth catching. So attitude is a decision. So I never lose, I either win or I learn, right? That's a great concept in terms of how you go at it. You don't have to beat yourself up. Either we're going to get better out of this or we did great. But this is an amazing study that looked at teams in the NICU, right? So the neonatal intensive care unit, where you're dealing with babies and they're sort of hanging on by a thread most times, and it takes a team to put it all together. And what they did is they introduced somebody who was rude into that team, so a bad attitude into that team, and not a member of the team. They just had somebody who's like, I'm coming here to observe. I need to make sure you're doing everything right for some state-run thing. And they come in, and that person was just very, very rude with every interaction. It made everybody miserable. And what it did is it shut down the whole team. That person coming in, they dropped communication. People didn't sign out appropriately, and there were issues. There were problems. There were misses. Nobody died, but there were things that they caught that could have been done better that was statistically significant just because somebody rude was there. How crazy is that? You're literally killing people with your rudeness. I mean, you got to have a good attitude so that we can all move on, and that translates out to sports teams. All the same, right? I mean, if anybody's played on a team sport, you know, one bad attitude sort of ruins the whole thing. This is another great study, and this quote here is the part that I wanted to finish with. But the study itself talks about, if you think about in a brain, there are cells, and those cells are connected, and that's how our brain works. And the more often you use the connection between two cells, the more connections there are. So it becomes like a superhighway, that connection right there. So if you complain all the time, or if you're miserable all the time, the cells that connect those complaining cells just get stronger and stronger and stronger, and it builds on itself, right? And then if you're just around somebody who complains all the time, you know, you just have that friend or that person who just everything they see is sort of the worst thing ever. Anytime you hear them talking, you spend a moment just getting your brain sort of pretending to be them to see how they feel. That's natural. It's normal. You have no control over it. You can't stop even if you don't want to do it. Just hearing somebody say, oh my God, my feet are killing me. There's a part of your brain that's like, oh, I remember what my feet feel like when they're killing me. And you experience that. And when you experience that, in that moment, you're creating another connection between those. So just being around somebody who complains all the time is making those highways even stronger, right? And then there are actually health. The article talks into their actual health consequences of having more connections there. You can get sicker from that. It's literally can kill you being around somebody who's, yeah, I mean, cancer, they show that there's increase in that. So it can be very detrimental to your health, just being around somebody who complains or complaining all the time, and being aware of that. These are real things. But the last paragraph just talked about, you know, your life is going to go up and down. They talk about the vicissitudes of life. There's going to be good things that happen, and there's guaranteed there's going to be bad things that happen. And how you weather that, how you respond to each of those things, you can be making those connections stronger, or you can respond to each one of those instances with either fear, which makes those connections stronger, and complaining, or with love, like with openness and being a part of the team and trying to move forward. And that's a choice that you have to work on, just like any other skill that you're working on the field. Is working on responding to each of those incidents with sort of love and openness and moving forward. And that's part of performance. So this guy, does anybody know who he is? Anybody recognize that guy? So he's the head coach of the UConn women's basketball team. Has anybody heard of the UConn women's basketball team? Do you know why you've heard of the UConn women's basketball team? They win all the time. It's a big deal. It's like the biggest dynasty ever, maybe, in sports. These guys are just animals. And this is him talking, so I'm going to turn this off. Look at me, just remembering that. We're going to put the volume up a little bit, and I just want you to listen to what he has to say. It's,
recruiting enthusiastic kids is harder than it's ever been. Because every kid watches TV, and they watch the NBA, or they watch Major League Baseball, or they watch the NFL, whatever sport they watch, WNBA, it doesn't matter. And what they see is people just being really cool. So they think that's how they're going to act. And they haven't even figured out which foot to use as a pivot foot, and they're going to act like they're really good players. You see it all the time. You see it at every AAU tournament, you see it every high school game. So recruiting kids that are like really upbeat and loving life and love the game and have this tremendous appreciation for when their teammates do something well, that's hard. That's hard. It's really hard. So on our team, me, my coaching staff, we put a huge premium on body language. And if your body language is bad, you will never get in the game. Ever. I don't care how good you are. If somebody says, well, you know, you just benched Stewie for, 35 minutes in the Memphis game a couple years ago. Yeah, I did. Oh, that was to motivate her for the South Carolina game the following Monday. No, it wasn't. Stewie was acting like a 12-year-old. So I put her on the bench and said, sit there. It doesn't matter on our team. Now, the other coaches might say, well, you can do that because you got 3 other, All-Americans. I get that. I understand that. But I'd rather lose than watch kids play the way some kids play. I'd rather lose. And they're allowed to get away with just whatever. And they're always thinking about themselves. Me, 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 me. I didn't score, so why should I be happy? I'm not getting enough minutes. Why should I be happy? That's the world that we live in today, unfortunately. And kids check the scoreboard sometimes because they're going to get yelled at by their parents if they don't score enough points. Don't get me started. So when I look at my team, they know this. When I watch game film, I'm checking what's going on the bench. And if somebody's asleep over there, somebody doesn't care, somebody's not engaged in the game, they will never get in the game. Ever. And they know that. They know I'm not kidding.
So I think body language is actually coming up in the literature. He referenced it, the athlete's body language, but looking at how that affects a team. Not just when you miss a shot, but when your buddy misses a shot. How do you respond to that? What does your body tell you? And because everybody can see that, and everybody responds to that, and everybody feels that. And being part of a team where we sort of build each other up. And I hate to keep using the word love because I'm not that kind of guy. I don't really, but like where you care about each other. That's the teams that are successful. So going a little bit further into body language. This guy, I think he's a comedian. I don't know what it is. I was looking for some, has anybody ever heard of him? I never heard of him. I was looking for videos on body language, and I think he's trying to be a little funny, but he's demonstrating body language that you would respond to and look for in an athlete. So we can just look at some of the things that we would typically see out there on the field.
Come on!
Just walking with your head back and your arms down, exasperation. Just those little things, like little things off in the corner. It's not like anybody's watching you, but that all affects everything. And paying attention to that as a coach and as a team member.
Hey, let's go. You okay? Yeah, Mr. Coach, I'm fine. Give me the ball. You not okay? You cry like a baby out there. With your body, it's no matter what's coming out your mouth. Your body telling you that you're not okay. And the umpire can read it too. You think they don't notice when you take a strike and look at like this?
But I think that that kind of exasperation of like, that shouldn't have been a strike. That's when we talk about the vicissitudes in life, that response to that is going to affect his next swing. It's going to affect the way he's taking that next hit. He's still hung up on it. You have to be able to weather these things in order to be a successful athlete, in order to be successful in anything. That's your performance right there. It's going to affect his performance. That it's not just it's funny and it's stupid and maybe it affects the ump who's going to call something different because like, what is this kid, an idiot? Let's just get him out of here, right? Or the rest of the team who are watching this. And he's just trying to demonstrate, hey, that shouldn't have been a strike. I didn't do anything wrong. It's not my call. He wants everybody else to know that. But we all have to understand that this affects everything and that he needs to be able to weather that the same way as if he had a home run. The pitch, you just take the next pitch, right? That's how it works in sports if you want to be successful.
Mr. Coach asks if you're ready to play, and you answer like this? Yes, Coach, I'm ready to play.
Right? And that comes back, I mean, that taps into me as a coach, right? Like, it's hard work being a coach. It's hard work being out there. And if your kids don't want to be there and play for you, I don't know what. I don't know why we do all that, right? But, and that goes back to the first thing, burnout, right? You burn out a kid. He's doing the same sport for 9 months, 12 months out of the year, every week, day in and day out. It gets harder for him. So all of this is related, but put it back together. All right, so now we can do this. You can put the volume back down. Yep. Okay, here we go. So related but not exactly the same as the story you tell yourself. And I alluded to that a little bit. It's like when you're up there in that pitch and you think you should have gotten a strike, but you didn't, and you missed the ball or what have you. What do you tell yourself about that story? What do you tell yourself about what just happened? Am I the worst guy ever? Did I miss it? Am I playing in a rigged system? What's the story that you say to yourself? That affects you more than you would think, right? And more amazingly than that, it's not hardwired. You can change this if you work on it. If you identify this as a piece of your performance, then you can work towards telling yourself, I am good, that wasn't a big deal, and we're gonna move right along. And that's gonna help you through everything. So, again, a bad game or 2 or 3 does not necessarily mean that you're in a slump. It causes the slump is how you focus on it, what you tell yourself about that slump, that you stink, that you're no good, that you're never gonna get any better, that you'll never hit another ball, that you'll never win another game, right? And then that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I gotta tell you, I've been fortunate enough to be on a losing team, right? I've gone a season without winning a game. And it is hard to suit up and get on that field and believe you're gonna win. You don't, you just wanna get through it. And the minute you start believing that you're gonna win and then you break your heart again when you don't, that's a hard thing to get through. I respect that, I hear that. But having the mental stance that we're just not gonna win is part of the problem. You have to be able to weather that a little bit better. Right, so you can improve it just like you can improve any other skill. You gotta respect that. Okay, negative thoughts. So this was actually in older individuals, not young, healthy athletes, but they looked at sort of negative thoughts, hostility, the pessimistic attitude, and they correlated with actual medical diagnoses. And they found that there was, when you're more pessimistic or you tend to sort of perseverate on a big problem, rumination, that was the word, rumination on a big problem, that you have health problems. What do they say? Cardiovascular disease, metabolic disease, die at a younger age, shorter telomeres. Who knows what a telomere is? It's not important. Okay. Raise your hand, brother. There you go. Okay, so how do you manage negative thoughts? I didn't really want to get into how to manage it. I wanted to identify things and just be like, this is what we're doing. But I thought we'd throw up a couple things real quick. And the first thing to do is sort of challenge your thoughts. Is this accurate? Does it have any basis in reality, the thought I'm having? Is there evidence behind it, or is it just like I'm beating myself up for no reason? Sometimes people do that. And then you can write them down, identify them, try and figure out what triggers them, and then work on putting yourself in perspective. And there's always talking to somebody, right? I'm a big fan of mental health and finding somebody, a counselor or somebody, and as part of performance as an athlete. I think that's very helpful, and it's a growing field. And these are the sort of the transitions. You're having this thought, switch it over to that thought. Okay, stress. This is a big concept. It was brought up at Binghamton plays in the Eastern Conference, right? And so there's a medical conference for the Eastern Conference, and I was like, did I tell you guys I'm the physician, for the sports medicine physician at Binghamton University? Right, so I went to that conference 2 years ago, and we had a big talk on stress. They talk about it like the athlete's envelope. Okay, so the definition of stress is just your body's way of responding to any kind of demand. It's like fight or flight. We all know what that is, right? We accept the stress and our body will respond to it. And some amount of stress is good. You want that. That's how you improve and you move on with things. And oftentimes we'll think about stress as like, you know, I just made my team run 10 100-yard dashes and they're under that stress, or we've lost 3 games in a row, we're under that stress. The idea is that when you're talking about the athlete's envelope, you have to factor in their schoolwork. You have to factor in their social life, what the other kids are doing, who's making fun of who. You have to factor in their family life. All of that lends towards stress. All of that comes into stress, and all of that's going to affect your performance, right? And there's things that we can do. Sorry. I know that lady. There's things that we can do to affect the size of our envelope. Like some people have bigger envelopes, right? And you can fit more stuff in it. Some people have even bigger envelopes. And we can talk about that a little bit. But respecting that all of those things are affected is important. And then once you have a lot of stress in your body, right? How does stress affect the mind? How does stress affect the body? I think it's reasonable. Most people would say, yeah, it makes sense that, you know, when you stress, there's a behavioral response to that, right? A lot of people will say, I eat a lot when I'm stressed. I finish a Chubby Hubby or whatever, like a pint of something, right? Like I'm under stress, I'm stressed out, I gotta do that. Or can't get out of bed in the morning, or I can't fall asleep, or I become insomnia. All that makes sense when you're stressed out. You don't wanna hang out with other people. And then alcohol, drugs, right? That's pretty common. Cigarettes, that's a common thing for stress. Those are responses to stress. And then there's people with nail biting, or there's this thing. right? Like there's things people that they do to deal with stress, and that's all easy to accept. Emotional symptoms, yeah, maybe, okay. Yeah, you get depressed when you're under stress for a long period of time, feeling agitated or anxious, that makes sense to us as well. Being more moody, feeling overwhelmed, feeling loneliness or isolation. But also there's cognitive symptoms. Like if you're under stress for a long period of time, you can have problems remembering things, difficulty concentrating or focusing on what the play was, on where I'm supposed to be right now, forgetting your assignments. We used to talk about discipline all the time in football, right? Being disciplined. But a lot of that is how you respond to stress and how you're able to maintain your cognitive abilities in this face of stress, right? Making your envelope bigger so that you can deal with all that stuff. And then constant worrying, and then even there's physical symptoms. And this is a thing that I feel is we don't talk about it, right? I see it all the time in my office. You come in with a problem that isn't really a biologic problem. It's related to stress, and you expect me to fix it with surgery. Like that's not a thing I can do, really. And it's not, as no one talks about it. It's not addressed anywhere. It goes back to sort of the Cartesian thinking, the model, right? When we started dissecting bodies, we were also making clocks. And so we thought, well, a body's a lot like a clock. You just take it apart and there's pieces and you put it back together. That's not really how it works. The mind and the body are not two separate things. It's not the spirit over here and the body over here. It's all connected. And so aches and pains, nausea, dizziness, chest pain, we're going to skip that one. Frequent colds or flu, that's all related to stress, okay? You guys believe me? Okay, still with me? Okay. All right, so tips for coping with stress, right? You just got to make the right shot. What are the things you can do? First is design a training program that mimics the performance conditions. So if we're talking about stress in particular to an isolated thing that you have to accomplish on the field, you know, if it's going to be a shot one-on-one with the goalie, one last pitch, you're up against you got to make the last hit, you got to make the golf swing, whatever it is that individual thing you can do, or, you know, a foul throw from the 3-point or from a foul shot for basketball. The thing to do is not to just practice those like in practice. You got to recreate the situation. You have to try and recreate that intensity of like last minute, everything counts for this, and then practice under that sort of higher duress level. It's also good to keep things in perspective. It's just a game. Stop and breathe. Focus on your breathing, learning some meditation techniques, and feeling prepared, feeling I did do all the practice. I've been where I want. I know what I need to do right now. And then focus just on the task, right? The mechanics of the thing. Clear your mind, do the thing. You know how to do it. Those are some of the skills you can use. And then reducing stress. We talked about talking, building strong relationships, loving the guys on the team that you're on or the girls on the team that you're on, getting enough sleep. Getting enough sleep's a big deal. Exercising regularly, relaxation techniques, and then breathing exercises. So breathing exercises are a big deal, and I don't know if we talk about it enough with our athletes. But this carries through in all areas of life. These are skills that you can take with you everywhere. They help release tension, relieve pain, reduce stress, reduce anxiety. They can improve your oxygen delivery and help with muscle relaxation. So there's lots of benefits to working on your breathing. You can just do deep breathing or diaphragmatic breathing exercises. And these are some of the tips that you can use to go through those. Again, you can find those on the Facebook page if you're interested. But this gets a little bit sort of touching on meditation and working into some of those techniques that can be really helpful for your performance. Resilience, I think of it as building your envelope, as making your envelope bigger, right? You can deal with stress in the moment, but working on your resilience increases your ability to deal with all of those stress put together, having a bigger envelope. And these are, you know, regular exercise, moving along with that. Mentally tough, it's a very similar idea. And they're all some of the similar concepts. Okay, so again, very related. They're all sort of related, all these things. So relationships. We talk about best teams play for each other, not with each other. Right, especially when you're down, like that Patriots team was last year in the Super Bowl, coming back like that has everything to do with caring about each other as a team and nothing to do with individual skills, right? So those are the best teams. And I heard a quote once, I don't remember the exact, but all athletes want to be part of something bigger and better than just themselves. That's what they're in it for. They want to be a part of something. And having a respect for that as part of their performance is important as well, giving them that opportunity. Alcohol and drugs, not in a good way, right? These are not, alcohol in particular. I have a friend who was an Olympic hockey athlete, and this is her kid. And this is a video she posted of the kid practicing in goal. I want you to watch his reaction time. Should we do this again?
Sure.
Oh, that should have worked. Here it comes. Ready? Not even a flinch. Like, you didn't even look at it. just one word. So that's what alcohol will get you, right? It's gonna decrease your muscle balance, cause weaknesses. It does real physiologic things. It decreases protein synthesis, your lower testosterone level. It makes it difficult to sleep. It might feel like you fall asleep easy, but it's not good sleep. It's not the healthy kind of sleep. And a lot of stuff happens when you're supposed to sleep. Your growth hormones, which you need to build muscles, that'll drop off, and lower vitamin and minerals, and it'll increase your fat storage and your dehydration. It's not good stuff for alcohol. And it's common in sports, at least I found, once you get out of like the youth leagues, that alcohol is part of it to some extent. And that's nice for the social and the bonding. But you have to recognize that it's not good for your performance. And certainly if it's something regular, it can be detrimental to your health, but it's not good for your performance. In college, that's more of a thing. Hydration. Everybody knows you're supposed to drink water. Everybody knows you're supposed to drink a lot of water. You should probably all know that none of you are drinking enough water. Like, it's impossible to drink as much water as you're supposed to drink. But it's really important for performance. It's going to affect everything. You start feeling thirsty around 2% body weight loss. The problem is that your performance decreases at 1 to 2. So even before you're thirsty, your performance drops off. And then most people are thirsty for a little bit before they even start drinking. Your heart rate will increase. Your cognitive performance decreases at 2%, so it's hard to focus on things. Your strength will decrease at 5%. You need to drink a ton. Just keep drinking. Sleep. This is a big thing that no one talks about, that we just don't realize is really, really important. Sleep, it's vital to all health functions. And you need it to be able to perform physically and mentally for everything. And it is very much intertwined with the stress that we talked about, with anxiety, and with all sorts of performance, and with mood and depression. It impacts everything, but it impacts your physical health, your ability to heal and recover. Your cells grow and repair and rebuild during sleep. And you need it for your metabolism, for if you're on a diet. They know that if you are not sleeping enough, you will gain weight. And one of the first things that happens when you start getting more sleep is that you'll lose weight. It has less to do with diet and activity. It has to do with sleep. How crazy is that? That's true. It says right there. Look at that, weight control. It's right there, I didn't make it up. And muscle growth. Cognitive performance, so learning and memory. Your short-term memory turns into your long-term memory when you sleep in REM, deep REM sleep. That's why when I was studying in medical school, I'd read a book and then I'd just take a nap for a little bit. And I was like, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. This is how I learn this stuff. You need that deep REM sleep to learn things, even plays on the field or where you're supposed to be. Helps with decision making and your vigilance and your alertness. So everybody knows that if you're sleep deprived, it's like being drunk. Being sleep deprived when you're driving is a problem as well, but that you can draw that correlation to sports, right? Sports performance. And I don't know what this guy is right here. So sleep guidelines, particularly if you're like school age, teenagers should be getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep. How many teenagers do you think get 8 to 10 hours of sleep at night? 0. None of them. They're all sleep deprived, and it's a problem. And college age as well, 7 to 9. College, they don't sleep 9 hours in college. No one sleeps 9 hours in college. And I would say that most of us don't get enough sleep for all the things we need it for. You guys, have you heard of like CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, like the concussion stuff? Right, so those tau proteins that build up in the brain in concussions, I'm not drawing any parallels here, but normally what happens is those proteins are washed out when you sleep at night. And when you're not getting enough sleep, they build up in your brain. That's a known thing. That's part of it. And we also have excellent research that shows that if you are sleep deprived and you get hit in the head, you are more likely to get a concussion. And once you get that concussion, it's more likely to be a complex concussion if you don't have enough sleep. And I also know as an athlete, it's hard to go to sleep the night before a big game, right? It's hard to fall asleep. That's why you need those breathing techniques, those relaxation techniques, and you need to understand that it's important, that it's going to affect everything. Sleep is a big deal. And these are, you know, so what are the strategies to sleep? So stick to a sleep schedule. You got to wake up at the same time, go to sleep at the same time, regardless of whether it's a weekday or weekend or you have somewhere to be. That'll get your body regular. Have a relaxing bedtime ritual so that you can sort of telegraph to your body, now is when we're going to sleep. The same things happen in the same order. Keeping healthy with your exercise, evaluating your bedroom so that it's at the ideal temperature, which is cool. It should be dark. If you have blackout shades, that's good. Sleep on a comfortable mattress and pillow. And then turn off electronics before big time. How long before bedtime? Does anybody know? Like 90 minutes they talk about before bedtime. Because you look at that screen and your brain thinks the sun's up at noon right there. And it keeps your body awake. You got to turn the screen off. I have like a thing on my, it's like a special app for my computer and for my phone. You can do it on your Apple, on your iPhone. If you have the iOS update, you can go and it'll make your screen less bright at night. I don't think it works because I still can't fall asleep because I still look at that thing. But you should know that it's no good for you and you got to turn that thing off to get good sleep at night. Stop using electronics. Turn them off. Okay, diet. Here we are. That's why we're here. Number 2. We're moving right along. We're almost done. Diet is important. That might be why we're talking. So the first thing I want to say is I don't know what to tell you. And it's not because I'm an idiot. And it's not because I went to med school. Because you know how much they teach you about diet in med school? Todd will tell you. How much do they teach you about? Not much. It's not really addressed. And you know why it's not really addressed? Because we don't have very good literature on it. There are no facts out there that are hard and known. Despite what you've read on the internet, there aren't good facts. And it makes sense, right? All we have really are correlations. We say, how many people eat at Core once a month or so? Approximately once a month. Raise your hand if you eat at Core approximately once a month or something. How many people are female? Raise your hand if you're female. So I would draw the conclusion between those two facts that, you know, if you eat at Core, you're going to turn into a woman, right? That's what a correlation is when you turn that into a causation, right? It's the same thing he's done. Everybody who went to the moon is eating chicken. Good grief, eating chicken makes you go to the moon. Right? That's a correlation. That's what all of our studies are. We say, what do you normally eat? Great. Did you die today? Okay. And that's how we go. If you eat this, then you're going to die. Or are you healthy? Do you have this medical problem? And we draw those correlations that way. Because what's the alternative? The alternative is we lock you guys in a room. We feed you what we want to feed you. And then we check how your health is. And we have to do that long term. And people don't stick on diets. Nobody sticks on a diet. And people lie when you ask them what they ate. So we have no way to track what really happens when you eat certain foods. You with me? This is one of my favorite comics ever. I don't know how it's related to everything or who will get it, but it's a statistics joke and it's hilarious. He says, I used to think that correlation implied causation, so that's what we're talking about right here. And then I took a statistics class and now I don't. So those are two facts, right? And the guy's like, seems like it helped. And he's like, I don't know, maybe it did. They're just two. It's great. Anyway, here we go. Okay, so, well, that's not, I'm going to say more than that about nutrition, right? We used to say back in the day, the first thing was, you know, salt is horrible for you and fat is horrible for you. That was sort of the first thing when everybody started talking in medicine about it. Stay away from salt, stay away from fat. Recently we sort of moved away from that. We were like, well, maybe the fat's not that bad for you actually. And maybe salt's not even that bad for you. Maybe it's sugar. Or, right, so carbohydrates. You want to just eat like the paleo diet. You just eat the stuff that was here before, which is mostly sort of meat, lots of meat and some nuts, right? High in fat, high protein kind of a diet. Maybe that'll help you. Then there are other people who's like, you know what? Animal products are the issue. It's not just meat, but it's dairy and eggs. You got to stay away from all that stuff, and then you'll be not healthy. They draw those correlations, right? They're like, people, you know, if you have breast cancer and you have a lot of milk, then your cancer is going to get worse. So you shouldn't have milk, right? We know this. That's a fact. It's not, they're all correlations. I do feel pretty confident that ultra-processed food is bad. Delicious, but evil. And you should stay away from it. It's one of the really nice things that Todd's done here. Right? You can look at every single ingredient, know what it is. It still tastes delicious. And I think that you're going to be better off with that. From a medical perspective, recreational athletes, like everybody in the world, basically we eat too much. We consume too many calories for our energy expenditure. But what I deal with a lot of times, particularly at the collegiate level and a little bit at the high school level, is that our athletes don't fuel appropriately. They're breaking down and working hard, and they didn't get enough protein or even enough energy, enough carbohydrates to get them through. And so we spend a lot of time focusing on some of those athletes, getting them the energy at the time that they need it for their workouts. I'm not sure how relevant that is, though, here right now. And we talked about processed foods. All right, the number one thing that no one thinks about is recovery. And we touched on a lot of it, but it's an important concept that you have to understand. You don't get strong in the gym. You don't. You break down your muscles in the gym. That's what you do when you're working hard and you're running hard. You're beating them up and you're breaking them down and you're tearing them. That's what you do in the gym. And then you rest and you fuel appropriately and you eat and you sleep and your muscle builds back stronger. You need to have that recovery. There needs to be days, there needs to be breaks for months, and there needs to be sleep at night in order for you to get better. And it's not, and you don't get smart in school. We talked about the short-term to the long-term memory, right? You go there and you learn the thing, but you don't learn it right there. You just get your first sort of interaction with it. You learn it with rest and with time away from it. Your body puts it back into place. And your muscle memory sort of, you know, I'm going to take 3,000 shots on goal and I'm going to learn where their goal is. Those actions happen, but that memory turns into something automatic when you're away from it, when you're resting, when you're sleeping at night. And so just recovery as a concept of resting, whether that means you don't play a sport for 12 months, you don't play a sport for 8 months, you have some time away from each individual sport, and you have some time away from being active, and you have some time away from whatever it is going to help you be better at all of those things. That's it. You got any questions? I'd love to answer questions about anything. You don't have to ask about it because this stuff's all over the place.
What are your dog's names?
So that guy's Rocky.
Okay.
And that guy's Tiger Lily. She's Tiger Lily. Like just Lily, Tiger Lily. It's just one eye. It was confusing for me for a while. All right, hope everybody got to eat something.
So what's the biggest change that you've seen in the college athlete? I'm interested in this. You started this presentation with being multi-sport athletes, and it seems like a challenging. It seems hard to be a multi-sport athlete and still be good enough to make Binghamton's team or any other team. So are you seeing BU just recruiting multi-sport athletes, or is it like a talking point that athletes should do multi-sport, but really what you actually see in the lacrosse team, the soccer team, the basketball team is these guys really are one sport athletes?
It's a little hard for me to answer because while I've had a lot of experience in a lot of different areas of sports, I'm the team doc and I come in and I cover the game, and they don't consult me often with recruiting, occasionally, yeah. And they don't. It's more like I'll see it. Maybe I'll see a lacrosse kid who had a football injury in high school, right? And so I'll know that they play different sports there. I don't think. I think it's a misnomer that you can't get into college unless you dedicate to one sport. I think that, you know, there was an interesting story I was listening to about sort of tennis back in the 80s and 90s when like McEnroe would play, right? And McEnroe was sort of old school. They went out, they played tennis, and then when they're done, they'd eat a hamburger and like hang out. And then I forget his name who came up. There was a new guy who came up, and he really focused on diet and working out and hitting the gym and working hard. And he was able to close the gap of like that natural talent that McEnroe had without any sort of extra work. By doing all of the extra work, he was able to close the gap. But yeah, it was Sam, right? So, but now we're at a place where everybody accepts that you have to do all that extra work. And so the John McEnroes who are doing that extra work, they're still ahead, right? So there's some natural ability that you can't get away from, right? And if you do everything, that natural ability is going to put you ahead, whether you play 3 sports or 1 sport. I don't think it's reasonable, and I feel it too, but I don't think it's reasonable to put it on our kids that in order for them to play at the next level, we have to prepare them now. I think that if you want your kid to be athletic, I mean, you go out and you play with them in the backyard and have them do those dynamic core type activities and just run around and enjoy themselves. And that'll, I mean, if you're fast, you're good at any sport, right? Like there's nothing you can't do. And we've all seen those natural athletes who can just, I mean, I have one of my best friends he can just do anything. It just makes me, it's hard to watch. He can show up and play any sport, anytime, anyway, just the first time he takes a look at it. That's a kid who's a natural athlete, and playing one sport for 12 months isn't gonna get you to beat that kid. I think that we should focus on the kids enjoying themselves, on the kids getting a lot more out of the sport than just being better at that one sport. And then the rest is going to take care of itself. And if they go on to play at a collegiate level, that's great, and we'll support that. And if not, then they have at least this gift to carry with them. I don't know if I answered that as well, but I think that's where I stand on that. All right, well, thanks very much for coming.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Lissy. So next, I think next month, we're doing another CoreLife lesson. Can't remember what it's on. It'll be on our Facebook. Thank you for coming. For those that haven't eaten, got a wristband, you're welcome to eat. And I thought it was great. We hope to see you guys again.
Thank you.